Hi, we are with Vivek, Raina, who is the co-founder and CEO at Excitel Broadband. Vivek, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Arun.
Great. So, just to start off, how has the pandemic affected your business and your network? How have new subscribers been coming up, and what are you seeing on your network side?
Yeah. Okay, so there were multiple layers to the pandemic also, multiple stages, as you would say it. So there was one stage when it started to hit us in India that something like this is going to happen. Pandemic had not yet started in this real sense, but we knew that lockdown or something like that, and such a virus is already in, it's going to come, and we people began to realize the enormity of situation that's going to sort of affect us. And many companies already had told their employees to work from home, mostly tech companies. They said, okay, please work from home because something like that might happen. And that was a very interesting phase for us because there was a huge surge in demand at that point of time. It was massive. It was like 2 times the normal demand that we had. And we basically installed twice the normal connections per week in that period of time. Um Basically, what happened was that people realized as soon as they have to work from home that mobile broadband is not good enough for such applications which are data intensive. For example, this conversation cannot be done that we're having right now cannot be done on mobile broadband. You need a proper wireline broadband for it. And then when you stay more at home, you obviously consume more internet in terms of entertainment also, and that also cannot be sufficed for by mobile broadband. And also then the schools started functioning from home, and also for that you cannot use mobile broadband. So ultimately the demand of wireline broadband started to increase even before the actual lockdown was announced by the government in India. And okay, so we kept on fulfilling the demand. And then when lockdown was announced, for first 2 weeks we were grappling with lots of issues, because even though we come under essential services, still it was not clear to anybody that how what is the way of getting the passes, what's the way of moving around the ground, how do we approach customers, how do we service even new customers, how do our partners, our network partners service customers. It was very complicated in the first weeks, but we proactively approached the government. We have proactively approached the Department of Telecommunication. They issued passes to us. The police issued passes to us. So we gave passes to our people on the ground. I mean, we have around 1,000 employees in Delhi. It's so difficult to get passes for all of them. So for some, we gave proper I-cards, and sort of authorities started acknowledging that these are from essential services. For many who had to move from one area to another area, we had to give passes because for a moment you needed passes. And so we did that. It took us a couple of weeks to do that, but once we did it, we were again ready, and we were ready to basically suffice the needs of our sort of users, both in terms of servicing the existing clients as well as getting broadband to people who needed it most. Because now the things had changed. Now people were actually locked inside their homes, and there was no access to the world other than broadband. And whether it was again entertainment or their studies or their work from home or even communicating with their relatives and friends, that broadband was the only option, and it was our imperative. I mean, it was our duty, and we realized it back then also that this is important and we need to do this at this time for our sake as well as the sake of the society. I mean, sanity of the society, that we needed to do this, and we did it. And the demand even today, after 3 months, continues to be higher than pre-COVID times. And the reason I would say is the same. People realize for the first time, I think in India, really in mass numbers, that mobile internet is not a comparison, cannot be sort of compared with real wireline home internet. A wireline home internet, which is unlimited in data and has consistent speed, is what is needed for homes in India for entertainment, all work for home or for study from home, and not mobile
Got
internet.
it. Yeah.
Therefore, we see consistently increased demand. I would say 30% more than the pre-COVID times. It still continues to be there.
And what you mentioned existing customers as well, and I'm guessing a lot of them had an exponential increase in data use.
Yeah.
So how have you seen? Have you been able to deal with the data increase
Okay.
in the demand for traffic?
So Excitel was a bit different in the whole scheme of things as far as the Indian broadband landscape is concerned. Because when we started in 2015, we were clear that it is videos, it is entertainment that will drive home broadband services in the country.
Yeah.
So therefore, from very early, we had very high capacity plans. We never had any download limit. I mean, no FUP, no download limit, and all our services were always unlimited in that sense. And the speed was constant throughout the month, and it still is with all our packages, constant for the month without any data limit. And therefore we understood there will be exponential growth in video usage in the country if we have to basically penetrate the market. In basically broadband, wireline broadband usage has to increase. So our backend was already accustomed for that. It is designed for high data usage. Our backend, by the backend I mean the NOC, the equipment in the NOC, as well as the fiber that runs to the city, was ready for this exponential increase. Yeah, there was a problem with the ILL, the uplink capacity that we had, and because demand surged by around 65%, and we had to upgrade our backend capacities, and we were able to do it again in a week and a half through our uplink partners. Yes, for a week there was this problem of uplink being less compared to the demand, but we could resolve it in a week's time. But having said that, our backend and fiber was always ready for such capacity because of our primary impetus and focus on high bandwidth usage sort of customers.
Okay. And you mentioned that the government was issuing you passes so that you could go around installing new connections. What other help would you like to see from state governments in Delhi and Telangana?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that since we're supposed to be, essential services, and therefore there has to be a feel, and every organ of the government has to know that broadband is essential service. For example, DOT knows that we are essential service, but maybe the policeman on the road doesn't know it. So there are, I mean, okay, I can get through because I'll show my pass, I can show my identity card, but a field sales officer who's walking on the street, or a field technical boy who's walking the street may not be so articulate to explain. So initially we did experience such difficulties with authorities, but by and by, now that all the restrictions have been lifted, there are no such issues any longer. And yes, the fact that in such times we have to understand that internet, the broadband, is the only way people are sort of accessing the world, and it is important for the sanity as well as keeping them abreast that internet has to be up and running. It's not just for new users; it's about even servicing the existing users. If, for example, in those days, if there was a fiber cut, it was very difficult to sort of actually send our people and rectify it. But yes, so I think this information across various organs of government on the importance of such services, whether it is broadband or any other essential service, sort of percolation of information to all organs of a government should be there.
Okay. And recently we had Amphan in Kolkata and other parts of West Bengal, and broadband and wireless networks went down in many places for a very long time as trees fell, snapped cables, damaged towers. Last mile cables are usually installed in a very haphazard way. They are very vulnerable, and they are just on the outside of a building where they're installed. How do you think that last mile infrastructure can be protected against storms and natural disasters like this, since we will be seeing more of them in more parts of the country?
Yeah. So it's an important question because we're going to see, as you rightly said, we're going to see more and more of such incidents occurring. Now, first and foremost, it is important to get rid of all legacy infrastructure. What do I mean by the legacy infrastructure? Legacy infrastructure means copper, which uses electricity, live electricity on the streets. We need to get rid of it and convert ourselves to fiber optic. By fiber optic, I mean fiber to the home. I mean, there are companies who are doing fiber to the curb, fiber to the building, fiber to the node, and things like that, and still have some parts which are on legacy, which are still on copper, and there is still electricity going through the wires. Yeah. So we want it to be reduced as much as possible. We want it to be converted to fiber as soon as possible, and that will help us in long run. That will help us because see, when there is thunder or lightning or rain, traditional infrastructure goes down. Like it falls like 10 ticks straight away because copper conducts electricity. and that as soon as there's an electric current or electrical bolt, you have hundreds of switches going down in a queue. But fiber has no such issues.
Yeah.
Fiber has no such issues. It doesn't conduct electricity. It's not affected by lightning. It's not affected by power fluctuation. So it is there. So I think the most important thing for the country, for all broadband providers, including Excitel, as of now, has to be conversion to FTTH, and that's of paramount importance.
So Vivek, just wanted to understand in terms of getting fiber to home. Has there been a change in the way RWAs and buildings and societies have used to react to digging and bringing of cables inside? And the other issue is that the majority of our infrastructure is above ground and not underground. So what impact does this have on your ability to deliver connectivity, and what impact does it have in terms of even the cost of delivering connectivity? Like, what would be the average cost for you to deliver a wire to a home?
Yeah. So so it changes considerably as soon as you talk about FTTH vis-a-vis legacy. It changes considerably. The fact that in legacy we never had this OLT and ONU concept. We still had to pull the wire, and there were switches on the road which were powered from the nearest electricity sources, and that's how this network used to be. But now you have one device at home and one device at the local node office or local partner office, and then there is fiber. Um, it, to my mind, as we have seen, and we have done considerable amount of FTTH rollout in the last 6 months. I mean, from our existing base now we have 50,000 live users on FTTH, and we are sort of increasing at the rate of I think around 3,000 per week in terms of FTTH users as of today. So I see as soon as you start doing FTTH, you reduce the infrastructure on the streets and on the poles, because there are no switches which are powered. There's no mesh of copper wires on the streets and roads. It becomes it's a finer wire. It's a plastic wire. It doesn't conduct electricity. You don't need to put switches. It's much simpler, and it can be properly clamped with the poles or the buildings, and therefore it is much more rugged, and it is much less affected by the vagaries of the nature. And as far as the RWs are concerned, you have to make them understand actually what we're doing. We're replacing the existing mess that is on the streets with this fine wire, without any electricity in it, without any there is no chance of any untoward incident happening to electricity in the society, because there's no electricity involved in the wire. It's just light going through plastic. And so I think they have been very positive. The RWs that we have. And plus the fact that your society or your colony is going to get world-class service at much higher speeds at same prices. That's what Excitel offers. Double the speed at the same prices compared to legacy. And this is a great boost. They really are excited about this.
No, but earlier one of the concerns that used to be raised was that the cost of providing connectivity in terms of the RWAs used to charge money, to basically get connected. So has there been any change in their mentality?
We don't do that. We don't provide you're right. Traditional telcos did offer money to RWAs, offer money to societies, and then gain entry to the societies and things like that. But Excitel doesn't do that. This is not our business model, in our business model at all. And yet we don't feel sort of limited by it. We have not felt any major restriction about it. I think we easily cover around 80% of Delhi NCR as of now. And we have seen, when approached in a proper positive light and you tell them actually what you're offering and how it's different than what they have having currently, they are receptive. They are receptive to this.
So what has your experience been in working with local cable operators? Because the reality of wireline internet access in this country is that it's largely controlled by neighborhood monopolies, and there used to be wars and battles between different cable operators cutting each other's wires, at least as of, let's say, 5 or 6 years ago. Does that still happen? And do you have costs associated with that? Like, how often do wires get cut for you guys?
It's over, I think. Yeah, it used to be our history. I mean, in the earlier companies, I have been in this industry for around 20 years, and this
Hmm.
was the part of life, as you rightly said. But in the last 4 5 years, it has changed drastically now. We don't see such cuttings happening anymore any longer, because one, the cable wars are over. They have their territories now. The second, stakes have lowered down because of new tariff order and things like that. The stake overall in the business has lowered down, and therefore this fierce attitude of not letting anybody move around has gone down. And then we're talking about broadband. It's not cable TV. What happens in cable TV is that if you are in a territory and there are 100 users in the territory, they're not going to grow. Cable TV is already reached a saturation point. They are only going to go less because they'll move to DTH or any other platform. You cannot grow a
Hmm.
cable TV base. While as broadband, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. We're nowhere. I mean, whole country has 2 crore connections. Come on, it's a joke. So when we go to a partner and we partner with local cable operators in many areas, this is how our model flies. We partner with them and we tell them this is it. I mean, you don't have to do anything. You have to just lay the wire and maintain it as per our specification. We'll do sales, we'll do CX, we'll do collection, and everything would be done in the company. You just maintain the wire. And we have 750 such partners in Delhi as of today. And yes, it happens from time to time, but uh, as a general rule, it's gone. Cable cutting and monopolizing of area, that's over. That's over now.
So I'll tell you a little story about something that happened about 8 9 years ago with me, where the local cable partner was actually constantly messing up the connectivity to a home, to my home, because he was renegotiating his deal with the primary provider. I'm sure you must have come across many stories like this in your experience. Does that still happen? And because a large part of your relationship is stops at the local cable operator, right? So the local service provider, it's the local service provider who has a direct dealing with the customer in terms of access to infrastructure, right? Or in access to the wires.
We have a different model. We have tweaked the model considerably. It doesn't stop at
Hmm.
our relationship doesn't stop at local cable operator. In case of Excitel, the sales, the onboarding of
Hmm.
customer is done by the direct Excitel team, and we have
Right.
500 sales guys roaming around in Delhi.
Hmm.
Then the CX, the call center chat, the onboarding, the welcome call, even
Yeah.
the dunning, to the most part because mostly online is done by
Hmm.
Excitel.
Right.
And more so in case of FTTH, even the design of the network is provided by Excitel. How you, I mean, with GIS mapping and things like that, we tell them which equipment to put where, and there are no equipments actually. This is just the fiber because
Right.
ONU, which sits in their office, and ONU at the customer's premise is also provided by Excitel.
Hmm.
So what they are what we want them to do is what they're best at. That is laying the cable and maintaining it in their locality, and the
Right.
rest everything is taken care of by Excitel. So in a way, this model flies because they do what they're good at. We do what we're good at creating packages, at marketing, at sales, at CX. And while they do what they're good at, and that is maintaining the fiber, and therefore we've changed our model. We've tweaked a model in such a way that it's win-win for both sides.
So your dependency on the local provider is just from the perspective of maintaining the cable.
That's right. That's right. Laying and maintaining of the cable.
Okay. Arun?
And so, this is not just the one more thing about broadband versus cable is that it's a much more competitive field right now, and we have geo fiber coming in all across the country. How do you think that will impact the home broadband market?
Yeah.
And in that sense, Vivek, does Geo Fiber coming in worry you because they're coming in with a massive amount of might and resources? Are you scared of Geo Fiber?
To tell you frankly, no. And I'll tell you the reason. Uh, I'll not say I'm being optimistic and optimistic fool. No. I'll tell you the reason. The fact is that, for example, you are from Delhi, and Airtel has been in Delhi from last, what, 20 years? They're doing wireline broadband in Delhi, and they don't cover more than 20-25% of Delhi as of now. It's not without a reason they don't cover 20-25% of Delhi. It's because they are in direct model. In direct model, they need to dig streets, they need to lay the wire up till the premise of the customers directly on their own. Okay, and for that to happen, they need proper structured areas. They need shafts in multi-story building. They need lanes and back lanes, proper lanes and back lanes where they can lay their fiber, and which means they only can go in structured areas. And structured areas in Delhi are not more than 20-25%, and that leaves you 75% of Delhi, which is uncovered totally by any of these direct providers, whether it's ACT, whether it's Airtel, or whether it's Jio. We're talking about Shadra, we're talking about Uttam Nagar, we're talking about um, Usmanpur, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of areas in Delhi where the majority of Delhiites live. 70% of the population lives. And they need broadband today as much as anybody else, because broadband is the main driver of entertainment in our households today. It's not about productivity anymore as it used to be 20 years back. Today, broadband is the main driver of entertainment, whether it's videos, whether it is series, whether it's content, or whether it is talking as we are doing right now. This is broadband, and everybody and anybody wants it, irrespective of where they live in Delhi. And with the ticket sort of size of 500 rupees, you can go anywhere. I mean, it's really not a sort of, we're competing with cable TV rather than competing with 1,000 rupees R2 for that matter. So therefore, this 75% of area in Delhi, and by that logic, whole of India, which is unstructured, so-called messy, so-called Bharat, is open for players like us who can do it in a proper way, provide best of the world technology, FTTH services, high speed at an affordable price through partners in such areas. The whole game here is to make your partner successful. Rather than like Nikhil was talking, rather than having a boxing kind of relationship with him, wherein you are both competing for uh, power. We want each other to be successful. We want to be partner in the success of the partner in the success of our partner. We want to make them successful by providing them a business model which is scalable for both sides, which makes meaning for both sides, in which both sides can grow effectively. As I said, by doing what we are good at doing, and they do what they are good at doing. Yeah. So that's how it goes. And therefore, with these partners, we can reach areas and places which directly any company cannot do, just because it's not possible to dig in Usmanpur. It's not possible to dig in the lanes and bylanes of old Delhi. Yeah. But our partners are there. They're already there. They have deployed our FTTH network according to our specifications, and they're providing a high speed FTTH services in such areas right now as we speak. So that's where my optimism is coming from. Yeah.
So in the early 2000s, Vivek, India had maybe just a few gigabits per second of international internet capacity, and at that time, as I'm sure you're aware, all customers were effectively subsidized by network providers, because the economics of an ISP was just so outrageous that these monthly tariffs were not making any sense. And we have come a long way from that. So I just want to understand, what do the margins and the EBITDA and all that look like for an ISP today, for a broadband ISP today?
Again, it depends on what game you are in. I mean, if you are in high ARPU game, then it would look different. But we're not in that game. We're in the game of scale, mass. We want, as I said, Bharat to have internet, which means we want it at affordable prices, and we want to provide the best of the class services. As I said, our basic offering as of today is 100 Mbps on FTTH without any data limit or restrictions on speed at all. And it comes, if you buy a multi-month package, it will come for around 550 rupees a month. So this game is different than providing 30 Mbps, 20 Mbps for 1,000 rupees, which many of the traditional telcos are doing. Yeah. So in our case, it takes a lot of connections. It takes some scale and some mass to reach EBITDA positive or gross margin positive, but it's doable. We did it multiple times. I mean, we have been doing it in Delhi. We sort of have a gross margin positive in the first year itself, after the first lakh users. And yeah, therefore, again, I'm saying the game is in mass. If you have mass of users, if you can scale across the cities, across the country, then it makes sense even at our ARPU levels.
Okay.
But
And,
it's a game also play. Yeah.
Yeah, so Vivek, we have a question from one of our viewers on YouTube, Pusant Mevedi, who's asking, do you anticipate any infrastructure upgrades with increased demand due to work from home and lockdown restrictions?
Yeah. So our backend infrastructure doesn't need to be upgraded. It's already, I told you, we designed a network in such a way that we were anticipating huge amounts of traffic because we are specifically focused on video services. So our network topology and network architecture was such that we didn't need to change our backend. But yes, as far as the last mile is concerned, as I told you, effectively we have been transforming our network from legacy, that is copper, to FTTH, and it's an ongoing process. As I said, 40 to 50% of sales currently happens on FTTH in our case, and we're adding around 3,000 users on FTTH every week. So yes, this transformation of FTTH is imminent. It has to be done. The lockdown has accelerated it, and we are doing it much faster than we had sort of anticipated. But yes, this needs to be done, and this
Got it. Yes. And so, how often do you receive website blocking orders from, let's say, the DOT or from courts?
very often, very often.
Most of the time we see, a site blocked with a message, but there's no reference to any legal orders. How difficult is it to publish these blocking orders that you get, and be a little more open about, why a certain URL is not accessible anymore?
There are many types of orders. So one set of orders comes from the government, DOT directly,
Yeah.
and in most cases we are told not to say why this site is being blocked. Okay. And, I mean, it comes, let's say, once in 15, 20 days, such orders do come. There are some URL that needs to be blocked. There is some site that needs to be blocked. Maybe it is something which is not sort of permitted. Okay. And we do it. And then there are court orders, the John Doe orders, so-called John Doe orders that are sent to us. That is usually for copyright infringement.
Yeah.
And these are legal court documents that come to us, and we have to sort of address that. Yeah, it is difficult to keep on doing it all the time. But
on John Doe orders, there are a lot of people who argue that only according to the IT Act, only the DOT has the authority to block these URLs. Have you ever considered mounting a legal challenge to some of these more expansive block lists? Because once we even had the Internet Archive get blocked for a few weeks because of one such order.
Yeah, so we've not, frankly speaking, thought of challenging legally such orders. These orders do come usually when there are new films, online movies getting released, and they want pirated, the sites that are pirating their movies to be blocked. And it's a huge list usually, yes, as you rightly said. But yeah, we do comply with them as of now because we have license obligations and we need to fulfill them.
Okay. Until a few years ago, Excitel was advertising, internet plans with separate speeds on the same internet connection for peered services and the general internet. Do you still do that?
No, we don't do that. We don't do that now. There's no need to do that now. It was very initially when we started, we were basically giving YouTube on a different speed because people were accessing YouTube for videos, and videos needed high speed, high bandwidth, 4K videos and things like that. So when we started with 20 Mbps speed for YouTube and 4 Mbps or 5 Mbps for rest of the sites. But now it's like 100 Mbps unlimited for everything. There's no need to do it. And even net neutrality had some role to play in it, though it doesn't come in terms of speed. But we sort of stopped doing it, I think, in a year or 2 years after we started. So as of now, it's 100 Mbps unlimited, everything included.
Okay. So, a lot of websites have, like Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, YouTube, have all kind of brought down their peak bit rates on their streams unilaterally across all ISPs and telcos in India. Do you believe that you can work with the same higher bit rate that was in effect before March?
That was only for wireless providers. That was for
no. It's there in across. They have basically said that we have applied it for all ISPs.
In our case, because most of them are pairing with us. Whether it's Amazon, whether it is Netflix, or whether it is Google, they are in our sort of servers. They're pairing with us directly. We didn't need to resort to that, and we basically still offer 4K content. So that was not affected us at all.
And what do you think of the peering and transit relationships in India? Are they welcoming for new and small ISPs?
Yeah, it has changed, I would say, in last few years. There are many pairing services. There are internet exchanges that have started and that have made life easy for newcomers. I remember the time when everything was ILL, 100% ILL you used to buy and then you used to basically sell it, making packages. but no longer.
ILL is the internet lease line. Is that what that is?
I mean, that is the uplink capacity from telcos that you
Yeah.
buy,
Yeah.
the real transit that you buy.
Yeah.
So you bought transit from some bigger telco, somebody who has gateway, and then you sold it to the subscribers, and that was the business. I'm talking about 10 years back or 15 years back.
Yeah.
But now it has changed drastically. The pairings have taken over. The content providers have come directly to this country. So Google is a massive content provider. Netflix, Facebook, everybody has bought pairings and content here, and therefore content to ILL has shifted drastically. I mean, in our case, it's 80% content and then 20% ILL. Such mixture has sort of taken place. And therefore, what I'm trying to say is, and also the internet exchanges, the proliferation of internet exchanges that has occurred.
Yeah.
That has also helped the ecosystem in a great way.
And speaking of exchanges, are you paired with Nixie? And what do you think of its relevance today?
We
Because
are here in Nixie, and see, our total, the total bandwidth or the total capacity that we deliver to customers in daily is around 500 gigs, and Nixie is around 35 gigs out of it. So you can understand the relevance.
yeah, I understand that. So what kind of traffic management practices do you adopt? Especially now that there is a debate going on in try to figure out what is acceptable and unacceptable traffic management from a net neutrality perspective.
And there's also going to be an open house discussion that TRAI is hosting on traffic management practices very soon.
So in our case, frankly speaking, we don't believe in throttling or accelerating any kind of traffic. We want the pipes to be open, and we see our job as people who open pipes, high-speed broadband pipes to middle-class Indians. And you have these 100 Mbps FTTH pipes to people's homes, and what they want to seek and how they want to seek is their business, and they should be provided unfettered access to whatever they want. And that's our sort of policy, and therefore neither throttling nor accelerating. It should be open pipe, and users should get what they want.
So do you think this net neutrality helps you in your competition with bigger ISPs, or do you think it prevents any kind of commercial arrangements that might help you?
No, I don't see what kind of commercial agreement. If you're talking about Facebook basics and things like that, which was they had started, but no, I think at our level, no, it neither hampers or neither changes anything. What we want for sure, as a basic policy and as a basic principle, is that there should be unfettered access of internet. Should not be any restriction to there should not be any preference to certain sites and blockage of certain sites. That should not happen ever on this free exchange of. I mean, this platform is what we have. Is still democratic to a great extent. It should not be sort of restricted by undue practices.
And do you notice any undue practices from competitors and other ISPs in that regard?
Not anything that bothers us till now. Yeah.
Okay.
Not in this country at least.
So, Vivek, I was just wondering that if there are things that you think need to change from a government policy perspective with respect to the ISP ecosystem, what do you need right now? What would really help you in delivering broadband more freely to consumers? What do you think needs to happen?
Yeah, first and foremost, we need to understand where we stand as of now as a country in terms of wireline broadband penetration. We're talking about 2 crore users for a population of 130 crores. I mean, it's peanuts. It's nowhere. It's tip of the iceberg. And why we have to question ourselves? Why have we remained backwards to such an extent in terms of wireline broadband? While as we have huge mobile penetration, I mean, it has grown drastically over the period of years. Why is wireline broadband so sort of restricted in this country? So this question we need to ask ourselves. Everybody needs to ask. The companies need to ask. The existing players need to ask. Even the regulators and the government needs to ask. So yeah, this is imperative. And the fact that there has never been a specific policy to encourage wireline broadband specifically in this country till now, at least. I mean, to give some kind of maybe tax discount, tax holiday, or things like that. We've never heard of it. I mean, we were still grappling with AGR till some time back, and those issues still keep to haunt the industry. And yeah, the fact that we are so lagging behind in wireline broadband has to be a wake-up call for everybody in the ecosystem, including the regulator and the government.
Do you see a good future for?
So in that in that sense, do you think the have the changes in the right of way guidelines have they been implemented firstly, and have they helped you in any way?
You're cracking up, Nikhil. I couldn't hear the question properly.
So there has been a change in the right of way guidelines from the government, right? There was a policy that came out. Has that helped in any way?
Not specifically. I'm not fully I don't know fully about this policy. What are the changes? I don't know it yet. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it's more than right of way. It's basically why should a why should a household have a broadband connection? While as in West and in developed world, we see broadband as a basic sort of utility. Like you have electricity, you have water, and you have to have a broadband connection in a household. And ultimately, every developed country and also India, if we were to sort of go to that level, would need to think of broadband as a basic utility infrastructure in each and every household has to have. But to that level, we have not moved at all. We have been focusing both in terms of industry as well as the regulators towards mobile internet, but no work has been done in terms of wireline broadband, penetration of wireline broadband. So therefore, I think everybody has to come together, whether it is the regulator, whether it is the government, or the industry, to increase the proliferation of wireline broadband.
And do you see any positive signs to that end, to wireline broadband getting significantly?
Ironically speaking, first and foremost with Corona and people having to stay at home because of the lockdown. At least people realize the difference between mobile broadband and wireline broadband. How are they different and what are the needs? What are the different sets of needs? This, explanation or this trying to explain to people the difference between mobile and wireline has been our biggest challenge from last 4 or 5 years, ever since we existed. We're trying to make them understand how is wireline different than wireless. And now this has become easier because they can see for themselves because of the lockdown. Now they need high bandwidth intensive things that they do at home. As I said before, also mobile, video streaming or work from home, or for that matter, such teleconferencing or video conferencing. It needs wireline broadband. There's no way you can do it with mobile in an effective way. And so such education at the ground level that there is need and it's a different product altogether was important. And obviously, lockdown did help it. But then it's a temporary blip, I see. And there has to be effective communication around the country to make people understand the difference and how it is useful and how it is important for every household to have such a connection ultimately.
All right.
So just for fun, one last question. When do you think BharatNet will be rolled out?
It is really for fun. I get it. I have no idea.
All right. Thanks for taking time to speak with us. Really appreciate it, Vivek. Thanks.
Thank you, Arun.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you.
Bye.
We've ended the stream. Yeah.
Yeah. So